In today's video, we're going to be brewing one coffee 3 different ways, testing out the last 3 World Brewers Championship recipes, tasting them, and talking about the techniques used in each of the recipes. Hello, my name is Stephen Holm and I am with HomeGrounds. We're a place that you can go to learn more about brewing and enjoying better quality coffee right at home. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're new around here, if you like coffee content, be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video so you see more content just like this. So today's video is going to be a little bit different than our usual equipment reviews or brewing tutorials, and I'm going to be brewing a few different recipes from the World Brewers Championship. If you're unfamiliar with this, there is a whole world coffee competition circuit that has a few different competitions going on. The biggest one is the World Barista Championship, and that is where you are making espressos and milk beverages and signature drinks and serving them to a panel of judges. But then we also have the World Brewers Cup, and that is where you are brewing a manual pour-over style coffee, serving it to judges, and they are judging it based on things. I don't know a whole lot about the World Brewers Cup. I've competed in the Barista Championship in the past, and it's a very interesting world, but you get some great coffee and some great coffee recipes out of those competitions. So that is what we are doing today. I took a look at the last 3 World Brewers Cup recipes, and we're going to be brewing them, talking about the techniques that they used, and tasting them and see how different they taste. In order to move on, first we need a coffee to brew. It's the holiday season, and one of the only ways I know how to get through it is by drinking. Drinking coffee, that is. And one of the easiest ways I know how to stay caffeinated this time of year is with today's sponsor, Trade Coffee. Trade provides a subscription of amazing coffees sent by incredible roasters from across the country, tailored to your tastes and your schedule. A coffee subscription is also a great gift for the coffee lover in your life, and Trade's digital gifting options are so much better than any old boring gift card. Trade's gift options are incredibly flexible for any budget because they have options from 2 bags to 24 bags, and with coffees ranging from decaf to espresso. And the flexibility doesn't end there, as giftees will be able to choose how they want their coffee delivered based on their schedule and coffee maker, and get to treat their taste buds with a truly personalized gifting experience without any hassle. From now until January 6th, each gift purchase will include a free bag of coffee for the gift buyer, and you get discounts up to $100. Trade is the perfect gift all the way up until the last minute, as they are delivered instantly and with ease. Check out the link in the description down below to get your free bag of coffee and incredible discounts from Trade Coffee. Thank you so much to Trade Coffee for sponsoring today's video. So we have our coffee here from Trade Coffee. I am not even sure what it is yet, so let's take a look. So the coffee I'll be brewing today is from Atomic Coffee Roasters, Costa Rica La Pastora. It is a washed Costa Rican coffee from Tarazu. Should be very delicious. So the first recipe that we're going to be brewing today is from the 2022 World Brewers Cup champion, Shi Huan Su, or who also goes by Sherry, and they are from Taiwan. Their recipe uses an Oria V3 brewer, which I tried to get a hold of for this video, but all of you have bought out that brewer completely. It's sold out everywhere, so I wasn't able to get one, so I will be using a Kalita Wave instead. Before you yell at me in the comments, I know that it will be different, but also all of these recipes are catered to the coffee that was being used by those brewers. So we're not even going to be getting perfect results. Today's video isn't necessarily talking about which recipe is best. They just all use very different techniques, and I think it's interesting to compare how those techniques influence the cup. So not everything in today's video will be perfect, but hopefully you can forgive me for that. And now what's interesting about this recipe used by Sherry is that they actually sifted out the coffee grinds into 2 sort of sections. And we saw this in a recent video that I did on the fellow O Generation 2, where I used the Crew Sifter, and what this does is they provide you with some screens at different micron sizes, and you're able to put your coffee grounds in here and separate it out based on the size of your coffee grounds. So what Sherry did is they divided the coffee into 2 sections. 75% of those coffee grounds were at 1,000 microns, and they claimed that this increased the soft, delicate citrus acidity of the coffee. The rest of those grounds, or the other 25%, were at 800 microns, and Sherry claimed that this increased the tropical sweetness of the coffee. Now, the other interesting thing that Sherry did in this routine was actually use 2 different types of water in their brewing. So they divided the brewing into 4 sections, each with 50 grams of water. And the first section actually used a completely different water than the last 3. So the first section, or the blue, used a water at 70 degrees Celsius and at 75 ppm. So they adjusted the minerals in their water, the mineral content, to be at 75 ppm, and then the other one was at 90 ppm at 95 degrees Celsius. Now, I don't really have a way to adjust ppm in this space, so I'll just be brewing at the 2 different temperatures. So let's get brewing this coffee. I'll be talking about what I'm doing as I'm showing you clips of me brewing the coffee, and then we'll brew the next one and the last one, and then we'll taste all of them together side by side. So in order to separate the grounds using the Kruf Sister, I started by putting in 1000 micron and 1100 micron screens. This will allow all of the grounds below 1000 microns to fall to the bottom of the Kruf and anything above 1100 to stay at the top. So we're left with grounds between 1000 and 1100 in this middle section. Once we have 75% of our dose, we can do the same thing with the 800 micron screen. Unfortunately, using the Sister does produce a good amount of waste, especially if your grinder isn't aligned very well. Now we move on to the actual pouring. So this first kettle is set at about 70 degrees Celsius, and we're pouring the first 50 grams of water. The final 3 50-gram pours are with a kettle set to 95 degrees Celsius. And there we are. Now, the second recipe that I'll be brewing is from the 2021 World Brewers Cup champion, Matt Winton from Switzerland. He used what he called the 5-pour method with the Hario V60. Now, the reason it's called the 5-pour method is because the brew was divided into 5 pours. So a 20-gram dose of coffee and 300 grams or milliliters of water, and those 300 mils of water were divided into 5 pours, so each being 60 mils of water. And so he would pour the 60 milliliters of water, wait until the bed was almost completely dry, and then pour another 60 until the end of the brewing process. Now, similar to the first recipe we made, he switched up his water halfway through the brewing. So the first 3 pours are at 93 degrees Celsius, and then the last 2 are at 88 degrees. Same water, ppm, but just different temperatures, so we'll be able to replicate that here today. Now, the last thing I'll point out before I go into brewing this cup is that as far as the grind settings go for these last 2 pours, I've been making these cups the last few days and sort of dialing in a grind setting that finish at about the same time as the brewers did in the competition. So it won't be exactly the same because it's not the same grinder, not the same beans and everything, but hopefully somewhat close. So let's get brewing the second recipe. This recipe is pretty straightforward. We're just weighing out 20 grams of coffee, no crazy sifting or anything. And we're doing 5 stages of pouring, each with 60 grams of water. So the first 3 are with the kettle set to 95 degrees Celsius, and the last 2 with the kettle set to 88 degrees Celsius. Now, I was aiming for this drawdown to finish right around 3 minutes and 30 seconds, which is exactly what happened. Hoo-ha! Now, the last recipe I'll be brewing is from the 2019 World Brewers Cup champion, Zha Ningdu from China. Now, they use what is called an origami dripper for their brewing. It is a very beautiful coffee brewer, obviously, but one big advantage it has is that it can use both cone or flat bottom filters. So you can try out between the 2 and see which one you like more in this brewer. They, in their competition, used a flat bottom brewer because they found that it had a smaller coffee bed, promoting a more even extraction. Now, this recipe is probably the most advanced, meaning just having the most amount of variables that I have to pay attention to. The first that's really interesting is that they actually ground the coffee twice. So first on a coarser setting, and then putting those coarse grounds through the grinder on a more fine setting. There are some studies to back this up. I don't know a whole lot about it. I'm not going to act like I've done a whole lot of it, but it's really interesting if you want to check it out. There's actually a grinder out now that does 2 stages of grinding, so there are some obvious benefits out there that people believe are contributing to a better cup. And then there's also a pretty elaborate pouring technique. So let me just walk you through the pouring stages with this coffee. Now, all of it is at one temperature, so just 94 degrees Celsius. So that's easy, but all of our pours are gonna be at different rates. Oh, and this brew is using 16 grams of coffee to 240 grams of water, so a 1:15 ratio. So our first pour is gonna be 60 grams for our bloom, and you wanna pour that at 6 grams per second, so that pour should last 10 seconds. Our second pour is gonna be 80 grams of water at 4 grams per second, so that should last 20 seconds. Our third pour is gonna be 100 grams at 5 grams per second, so that will last 20 seconds. So very different rates of pouring water. I don't know all of the science behind this. I mean, I do know that when you're brewing pour over coffees, the faster that you pour, obviously the faster that your coffee will draw down. The slower you pour, the slower your drawdown. So you are sort of varying the length of extraction, but I don't know exactly what they're trying to get out of this. It will be interesting to see how that plays out in the cup. So let's get to brewing our coffee. All right, here we go. So I'm starting out by grinding the 16 grams of coffee on a fairly coarse setting, taking those grounds and dumping them right back through the grinder on a finer setting. Now I've got a kettle ready at 94 degrees Celsius and we can start pouring. So the first pour is 60 grams of water poured in 10 seconds, and we'll let that sit for about 30 seconds for the bloom. The second pour is 80 grams of water poured in 20 seconds, and the final is 100 grams poured in another 20 seconds. It took me a few tries before making this video to get close to those speeds, but I did pretty well with this brew. All right, so here we are. We have our 3 coffees brewed. I have 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna go ahead and just pour them into these little glasses here so I can slurp them with a spoon. So this is, I actually didn't even plan for it to be this way, but these cups are each kind of highlighting certain things in the coffee. So this first cup I think really emphasizes sweetness and acidity in the coffee, and I think that's because of how we divided those grounds. If we had included a lot of the fines, I think we would have added a little more depth and body, less acidity. Now the second one I said is more depth, it has more body, and I think that's because of the longer brew time with the V60. Both of these cups finish in under 2 minutes versus this middle cup finish in about 3 minutes and 30 seconds. So that extended length allowed the coffee to get a little more extraction out of it, a little more depth, a little more body. Now this cup I really think sort of plays in between the other 2 cups. We get some of the depth because we didn't sift out any of the fines, so we get a little more extraction, but it ran so quickly that I think it is a lower extraction than this middle cup. I feel like I could ramble on and on about the differences between these cups and the brewing methods, but I think really just I wanted to make this video because it's very interesting to me how people will approach a coffee in order to highlight different things out of it, and it really goes to show that even though we're taking this simple thing of coffee and just brewing it in one method of percolation or drip brewing, we're just altering very small things throughout, whether that be sifting out grounds or different water temperatures or pouring different amounts or different speeds. All those things will affect your cup of coffee. I hope that this video was interesting to you. I would definitely recommend checking out these recipes, trying them on your own, comparing one to another. It's a really fun experiment, and I think really interesting to see how all these little variables can play out in a cup of coffee. Thank you again to Trade Coffee for sponsoring this video. Everyone needs coffee all the time, and you really can't go wrong with Trade. They're sending out some really delicious coffees all year, and they have some great deals going on right now in the holidays. If you have any questions about any of this, let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, happy brewing.